Good evening from Mission Control in Houston and the International Space Station Flight Control Room here at the Johnson Space Center. At this hour, flight controllers are working in concert with Russian counterparts half a world away at the Russian Mission Control Center in the town of Korolyov outside Moscow, watching the approaching impending rendezvous and docking of the unpiloted ISS Progress 85 cargo ship that was launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan on Tuesday night. At this hour, Progress, all of its systems in great shape, closing in for its automatic link up to the aft port of the Zvezda service module, now within 10 kilometers of its destination, for its link up that is scheduled at 10:50 p.m. Central Time, 11:50 p.m. Eastern Time, to complete a 2-day, 34-orbit journey from the launch pad at Baikonur. You are looking at a live view from a balcony camera at the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow. Everything has gone perfectly with all of the rendezvous burns for the the unpiloted Progress resupply ship that is carrying 2.7 tons of food, fuel, and supplies for the Expedition 69 crew on board the International Space Station. While Progress is closing in for its docking to the International Space Station just about 48.5 minutes from now, down at the Kennedy Space Center on Launch Pad 39A, you're looking at the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket, which was to have launched 4 hours after the Progress docking this evening. However, mission managers met within the last couple of hours to review a couple of open items, just nothing significant, but a couple of technical items that required a bit more analysis, and thus determined that one more day would do no harm. And resulting from that meeting was a decision to postpone the launch for 24 hours of the Crew 7 crew that will ride on the Dragon spacecraft to the International Space Station. The Crew 7 crew, led by its commander, Jasmin Moghbeli of NASA, along with pilot Andy Mogensen of the European Space Agency, Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Satoshi Furukawa, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Konstantin Borisov will have one more day to prepare for their launch, which is now scheduled on Saturday morning at 2:27 a.m. Central Time, 3:27 a.m. Eastern Time. The launch once again postponed for 24 hours to allow mission managers to close out a couple of items and to resolve just one minor technical issue with one piece of open paperwork. That will get resolved within the next 24 hours, permitting a launch. Our launch coverage now will start not this evening, but rather tomorrow night, Friday night, August 25th, at 10:30 p.m. Central Time, 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time, leading up to a launch of the Dragon spacecraft and the Crew 7 crew on Saturday morning at 2:27 a.m. Central Time, 3:27 a.m. Eastern Time. A launch on Saturday morning will result in a docking to the International Space Station by the Dragon spacecraft on Sunday morning, August 27th at 7:50 a.m. Central Time, 8:50 a.m. Eastern Time. That will be followed by hatch opening within the 2-hour time frame after docking is completed, and welcoming remarks by the crew. The docking, hatch opening, and welcoming now scheduled for Sunday, August 27th. You're looking at the view from an external cross-haired engineering camera on the Progress 85 cargo ship as it closes in on the International Space Station. You can see in the lower left-hand corner the values on your screen showing that the Progress is now about 7.5 kilometers away from the station, closing at a rate of about 10.5 meters per second. That closure rate will continue to reduce as the Progress approaches the vicinity of the International Space Station. We'll conduct a 91-degree fly-around of the station, and then we'll be given permission to put the brakes on, basically, for a short period of station keeping before it resumes its final approach and very slow closure for a docking at a rate of about 1/10 of a meter per second the docking of the Progress to the aft port of the Zvezda service module scheduled at 10:50 p.m. Central Time, 11:50 p.m. Eastern Time.
Monitoring the automatic approach, you can prepare the command to activate Toru, and also the reverse at 6:15. We can start.
Earlier today, one more technical item of note. The service module engines on the International Space Station fired for 21.5 seconds at 10 a.m. Central Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Time in a predetermined debris avoidance maneuver that was coordinated between NASA and Roscosmos ballistics specialists. That was designed to provide an extra margin of distance from what had been evaluated as a fragment of debris that had that debris avoidance maneuver not been conducted, could have passed within about 5 statute miles of the station later this evening. So that debris avoidance maneuver, which basically had the effect of lowering the station's orbit by about 0.3 of a mile, had no impact on tonight's docking, would have had no impact on the launch of Crew 7 had it occurred tomorrow morning, and has had no impact on other station operations. Once the docking occurs, there will be a period of just a couple of minutes to allow the relative motion between the Progress vehicle and the International Space Station to dampen out on the docking interface between the two spacecraft. Once that occurs, then the forward docking probe on the Progress will retract to form a hard mate between the Progress and the station. There will be a period of leak checks to make sure we have an airtight seal between Progress and the station before the cosmonauts on the station in the early morning hours of Friday morning open up the hatch to Progress and begin to unload its cache of food, fuel, and supplies from the vehicle.
Range 6, -9. We have the signal acquisition.
Progress began its journey off the Launch Pad 6, Site 31 at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan on Tuesday night, U.S. time, with a launch at 8:08 p.m. Central Time, which was 6:08 a.m. Baikonur time on Wednesday morning. The launch occurred about 12 minutes after sunrise into a cloudless sky. The Soyuz 2.1A booster arced out to the northeast off of the launch pad in Baikonur to an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator. 8 minutes and 49 seconds after launch, the Progress spacecraft separated from the third stage, the upper stage of the Soyuz booster, unfurled its solar arrays and navigational antennas, and began its 2-day chase to catch up to the International Space Station that, all things being equal, will culminate with a docking about 41.5 minutes from now. On board the International Space Station, the cosmonauts are awake at this hour. Sergei Prokopyev, the station commander on the far right of your screen in this Expedition 69 crew portrait, along with Andrei Fedyaev, who is second from the right, and Dmitry Petelin, who is second from the left in this crew portrait. They are awake, monitoring the approach of the Progress for its link up to the International Space Station. Prokopyev and Petelin will be at the controls of the Toru, the telerobotically operated rendezvous system. It's basically a joystick system in the Zvezda service module, ready to take over manual control of the flying of the Progress in the unlikely event that a failure would occur with the Corps' automated rendezvous system. The Corps' automated rendezvous system has locked on to a comparable system on the International Space Station, providing the guidance that the Progress needs to calibrate its rate of closure. And the distance between Progress and the aft port of the Zvezda service module, which will be the port of call for docking. That's coming up a short time from now. The Progress now about 4.5 kilometers away from the station, closing at a rate of about 8.5 meters per second, all of its systems in excellent shape. The International Space Station and the 7 crew members on board comprising the Expedition 69 crew, soon to expand its numbers to 11 once the Crew 7 crew arrives on board, now scheduled for Sunday morning. The station is flying 260 miles above the Earth, moving from northwest to southeast, flying just to the south of Shanghai, China. Once again, the Progress is loaded with 2.7 tons of food, fuel, and supplies for the crew members on board the station, the latest in the chain of supply ships flying to the International Space Station. Once again, let's note for our viewers and listeners that the launch of the Crew 7 crew on a Falcon 9 SpaceX rocket from Launch Pad 39A at the Kennedy Space Center that had been scheduled for the wee hours of Friday morning has been postponed for 24 hours to allow mission managers to close out some open paperwork on preparation for the vehicle to be launched and arrive at the International Space Station. There's the view on Launch Pad 39A of the Falcon 9 rocket. The launch again scrubbed this evening for 24 hours. The NASA TV coverage of the Crew 7 launch now will begin on Friday night. That's tomorrow night, Friday night, at 10:30 p.m. Central Time, 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time, culminating with a launch at 2:27 a.m. Central Time on Saturday morning, 3:27 a.m. Eastern Time. That will put the Crew 7 crew on almost a 30-hour phasing trajectory to reach the station on Sunday morning, with docking to the forward port, or rather the zenith port of the Harmony module of the International Space Station on Sunday, docking scheduled now at 7:50 a.m. Central Time, 8:50 a.m. Eastern Time on Sunday morning, August 27th. This will have the net effect of pushing back the departure of the Crew 6 crew from September 1st to September 2nd. All of that will be further evaluated once we get Crew 7 docked and on board the International Space Station to begin their planned 6-month mission. Between now and docking time, there will be a series of so-called impulse burns from the engine on the Progress vehicle, very short bursts, essentially mid-course correction burns of the Progress to further fine-tune its path to the International Space Station. And once again, there will be a fly-around of the station. The fly-around is scheduled to begin at about 10:25 p.m. Central Time. It will entail an angle of fly around of about 91.7 degrees to precisely align the forward docking probe on the Progress with the aft port of the Zvezda service module. There will be a brief, very brief period of station keeping to allow Russian flight controllers of the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow to analyze the angle of the Progress and its alignment with the aft port of Zvezda before the command is given for final approach for the unpiloted Progress craft.
We have lost the signal. Copy. We have Escada activation. The burn is being executed. Copy. Burn, reverse maneuver.
Принято.
Copy.
The visiting vehicle officer here in Mission Control, Tom Erkenswick, reports that the
1.8.
Impulse 4 burn has been completed, the latest in that series of mid-course correction maneuvers. And there's a view from external cameras on the International Space Station of the Progress as it begins to close in to about 2 kilometers away from the station in the terminal phase of its rendezvous. All of the Progress systems have been functioning by the book since its launch on Tuesday night U.S. time from the Baikonur Cosmodrome.
Это.
Copy. We have signal acquisition. We are sending by for your go to activate Toro. Go ahead and activate Toro. Sending the command to activate Toro. The command to activate Toro is activation is confirmed. You can start working for page 21, item 4.2. Okay, I am activating the network and all the push buttons are released. The network is activated. The power for the hand controllers is on. Okay, copy. We sent UBS initial. We have 2 LEDs. We have internal and external LEDs on. Copy. We have prepared the hand controllers. I am testing the RUO test. Go ahead and execute the test.
You're hearing the voice of the interpreter relaying the information from Station Commander Sergei Prokopiev, who is inside the Zvezda service module. He's conducting a final test of the telerobotically operated rendezvous system. That's the backup rendezvous system that he would be using in the unlikely event that the Corps' automated rendezvous system on Progress would encounter a problem, rendering it unavailable. So far, the Corps system is rock solid, locked on, everything in good shape. As you look now at the view from the engineering crosshaired camera on the outside of the Progress craft, which is just over 1 kilometer away from its destination at the aft port of the Zvezda service module. It is closing at a rate of about 3 meters per second, all of the Progress systems operating normally.
Braking, retrograde burn, external, internal, neutral. We have performed test of
the Progress and the International Space Station flying 260 miles to the northeast of Indonesia at this hour.
With that initial 2 LEDs are on, 2 external, 2 internal are eliminated. I am ready to perform the test for item 4.3. Starting. OPS initial, internal, external are on. I activated the operation. External and internal are on. I am activating AGC mode. Inaudible. Pressing for the first time. I see the marker.
The Impulse 5 burn is underway. Once again, the latest in the series of mid-course correction maneuvers by the unpiloted Progress craft. that is some 30 minutes away from docking to the aft port of the Zvezda service module.
Two indicators again. Internal AGC LEDs.
Progress now about 880 meters away from the station.
External and internal indicators are illuminated.
For those of you just tuning in, there will be no coverage tonight of a Crew 7 launch from the Kennedy Space Center. That launch was postponed for 24 hours by mission managers to afford them a bit more time to close out open paperwork on a technical item that should be completed within the next 24 hours, permitting a launch of the Crew 7 crew, NASA's Jasmine Moghbeli, ESA's Andy Mogensen, the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency's Satoshi Furukawa, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Konstantin Borisov. They are now scheduled to launch on Saturday morning at 2:27 a.m. Central Time, 3:27 a.m. Eastern Time. NASA TV coverage of launch now will begin on Friday night at 10:30 p.m. Central, 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Here in Mission Control in Houston, Flight Director Elias Mirmo pulled his team of flight controllers, gave a go for docking. The Russian Mission Control team in Korolyov outside of Moscow, taking a look at the data. Everything is in good shape with the Progress, closing in on the 600-meter mark away from its destination at the aft port of Zvezda.
Range is 600. Range rate is negative 164. Copy. Range is 500 and rate is negative 1.5. Copy.
Progress in the International Space Station, flying just off the northeast coast of Australia as the two vehicles move from northwest to southeast in an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator. Progress now less than 500 meters away from docking, which is scheduled about 26 minutes from now.
At the time 6:24, starting the fly around.
And Progress has now initiated its fly around of the International Space Station. This is about a 91-degree fly around to precisely align its forward docking probe with the aft port of the Zvezda service module. Once the fly around is completed, Progress will put the brakes on at a range of about 195 meters for a few seconds or so of station keeping to allow Russian flight controllers to evaluate its alignment between the forward docking probe and the aft port of the service module. Once that's complete, the command will be given to reinitiate final approach for docking.
We have built the plane for the fly around. Inaudible.
Принято.
Copy.
Progress's automated fly around of the International Space Station continues in fine shape. No issues with the Progress systems, as has been the case since its launch on Tuesday night U.S. time from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan.
Сергей, у нас
Sergey,
46, ход в тень, фара включена.
at 6:46, we're going to start eclipse, and the headlight is on. Copy.
Наблюдаем включение фары по телеметрии визуально.
Please monitor the activation of the headlight per the telemetry and visual as well. Copy. 6:46. Start eclipse. Range is 240.
240 meters now separating Progress from the station, continuing its fly around. The Zvezda service module is in the upper left-hand corner of your screen in this engineering view from the Progress camera. That large antenna at the aft port of the service module is the Lyra antenna, which provides high data rate telemetry and television from the Russian segment of the International Space Station. We are about halfway through Progress's fly around of the station. Again, a 91-degree fly around to precisely align the forward docking probe on Progress with the aft port of the Zvezda service module.
Range is 218 meters. Range rate is negative 0.15.
Принято.
We see the docking port. Copy.
Progress about to wrap up its fly around 120 meters away from the station. The Corps' automated rendezvous system on the Progress and on the station, they're locked on to one another, providing navigational data for the unpiloted craft during the terminal phase of its rendezvous.
Cone. Range is 189. Copy. Range is 198.
Сергей, на лист 2.
Sergey, on page 2.
Обратите внимание, сейчас получить разрешение на
So
включение
try
сначала.
to get the go. We're currently on the axis of the docking port, and we're performing the maneuver, the pitch maneuver. We're performing the roll maneuver. We are currently continuing the maneuver. The range is 198. Range is 190. Copy.
The Progress is now doing a pre-planned maneuver that will orient its solar arrays in the correct angle for final approach for docking. You can see the thruster firings from the unpiloted craft, basically slowing the Progress down for a brief period of station keeping.
Есть разрешение на выдачу команды F-44.
Sergey, we have a go to send the command F44. Copy. Time is 3:34:22. Turning on VPS in the initial configuration. We have internal and external on. The time is 3:34:35. I have sent from the display. We see the approach.
Принято.
Copy.
Дальше по 23 странице работы.
Next, work for page 23, monitoring the automatic approach.
11,5 минут до тени.
We have 11.5 minutes until eclipse. Rate is negative 0.8. Inaudible. We lost video momentarily. Copy.
This is Mission Control Houston. Good view of the unpiloted Progress 85 cargo ship which is just about 100 plus meters away from its docking port at the aft end of the Zvezda service module. We're about 14 and a half minutes away from physical contact of the Progress. Once docking occurs, the Progress and space station docking interfaces will have an opportunity to dampen out against one another to enable the docking probe to retract, forming a hard mate between the two vehicles. There'll be a period of leak checks over about an hour and a half to 2 hour period. And then in the wee hours of Friday morning, Sergei Prokopiev and Dmitry Petelin will open up the hatch to Progress and begin to unload its volume of supplies, 2.7 tons of supplies, food, fuel, and dry goods for the Expedition 69 crew.
Range rate is 0.58. Copy.
And with almost no station keeping required, the Progress is now slowly closing in for its link up.
The rover to measure. Does the alignment match visually? $80 measured with the rover. It's 80. It does match. Copy.
Progress in the station flying over Auckland, New Zealand at an altitude of 260 miles.
70.
The Progress inching ever so close to its port of call at the aft port of the Zvezda service module.
Copy.
"60 meters now separating Progress from Zvezda, closing at a rate of 0.2 of a meter per second. The Zvezda service module launched in July of 2000 on a Proton rocket from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan.
The measured range matches the visual range. Range is 50. Range rate. It's to the left by half a no. Okay, copy. Standing by for the readiness. Of the readiness message. Three 39:30 is the time.
Есть подтверждение готовности ССВП.
We have the SSVP readiness at range 30.
The forward docking probe has been extended on Progress 49 meters away from docking.
Copy. Do not send the
All of its systems in good shape. This is all an automatic approach for link up
go.
to the International Space Station, providing supplies for the Expedition 69 crew, which has been on board for several months, and soon to be joined by the Crew 7 crew, now scheduled for launch on Saturday morning from the Kennedy Space Center.
Visually, the range is about 35 meters.
Это
Inaudible. Copy.
Progress and the station moving into an orbital sunset over the South Pacific. Just about 30 meters separating Progress from its docking port.
Internal, external LEDs. Internal, external LEDs are illuminated. We see
The rate of closure now down to 1/10 of a meter per second. That will be the rate of closure at the time of contact and capture.
Monitor the automatic final approach. Expect the 20 meter range signal. That's going to be a repeat check of the readiness. And work per page 24. Copying. Inaudible.
All of the data being received from the Progress to the International Space Station and vice versa for the Progress navigation systems, all lining up nicely through the Core's automated rendezvous system. "25 meters now from docking.
We have the message owl is deflected. Copying. At 6:42. For page 24. Per page 24.
20 meters now separating the two vehicles, which are moving in close proximity to one another at a speed of about 5 miles a second.
Range visually is about 15 meters.
Принято.
Copy.
You see the crosshair docking target at the bottom of the docking port of the Zvezda service module, now 15 meters separating the two.
Range is 10.
Now 10 meters.
Inaudible target. There is a shadow overlapping with the target a little bit. Inaudible comment.
Принято.
Copy.
About 4 meters.
Range is about 3 meters.
3 meters now, standing by for contact and capture.
Copy. The target is in the center. The crosshairs are aligned. Range is about 2 meters. Expecting contact. We have contact.
We have contact.
45.
Docking confirmed. We have capture at 10:45 p.m. Central Time, 11:45 p.m. Eastern Time. as the International Space Station in Progress 85 flew 260 miles
Well done.
over the South Pacific.
Stand by for
A flawless rendezvous
from the ground.
and a flawless two-day journey from the launch pad at the Baikonur Cosmodrome. 2.7 tons of food, fuel, and supplies have arrived at the International Space Station.
Okay, thank you, Andre. Standing by.
Once again, Progress 85 has docked to the International Space Station. Docking occurred at 10:45 p.m. Central Time, 11:45 p.m. Eastern Time, as the space station and Progress flew 260 miles over the South Pacific. We'll now wait for the forward docking probe to retract to form a hard mate between the two vehicles and for the hooks to close on the Progress. The forward docking probe is in the process of retracting.
On Space to Ground 1 about video recording. Go ahead, Dmitry, on Space to Ground 1. Should I stop the recording at this time?
Все корректно.
Yes, that is correct.
The docking probe has retracted and hooks are now driving. And we have confirmation that the hooks are now closed. Progress is hard mated to the International Space Station to complete a problem-free, flawless 2-day journey from the launch pad of the Baikonur Cosmodrome, arriving at the station and docking at 10:45 p.m. Central Time, 11:45 p.m. Eastern Time, to complete its 34-orbit journey, delivering 2.7 tons of food, fuel, and supplies to the crew members on board the station. The crew complement on board the station will expand within the next 48 hours from 7 to 11 crew members. Earlier this evening, as you look at a live view of the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket on the launch pad 39A at the Kennedy Space Center, mission managers met and elected to postpone the launch of the Crew 7 crew for 24 hours to provide just a bit more time to close out some open paperwork that will be completed within the next 24 hours, leading to a launch early Saturday morning, August 26th at 2:27 a.m. Central Time, 3:27 a.m. Eastern Time. Our launch coverage on NASA TV will begin on Friday night at 10:30 p.m. Central Time, 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time, leading to the launch of the Crew 7 crew, NASA's Jasmine Moghbeli, who's the commander, Andy Mogensen of the European Space Agency, Satoshi Furukawa of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Konstantin Borisov. They're all set to go. Their ride to the International Space Station is awaiting, with the launch scheduled now for Saturday morning at 2:27 a.m. Central, 3:27 a.m. Eastern Time. That will culminate with a docking to the zenith or space-facing port of the Harmony module of the International Space Station on Sunday morning, August 27th at 7:50 a.m. Central Time, 8:50 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll be providing continuous coverage of the journey of the Crew 7 crew to the International Space Station, again beginning with our launch coverage on Friday night at 10:30 p.m. Central, 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time. With that, we'll wrap up our coverage for tonight. Progress 85, a smooth and uneventful docking to the International Space Station to complete its journey from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. We'll see you back on Friday night with launch coverage for the Crew 7 crew. In the meantime, this is Mission Control Houston.